Hannah Alexander here with Luke Youtsey, and we are thrilled to have you in our session today about how to optimize your testing program via the inclusion of a shared control group. So a little more about us. I'm the Associate Director of Experimentation and Strategy at Evolytics, and I am based in Atlanta, Georgia.
And like Hannah said, I'm Luke Youtsey, a data scientist here at Evolytics, and I am based out of Kansas City, Missouri. I'll go ahead and hand it back to Hannah to talk a little bit about what shared control groups actually are.
So, as we all know, with standard A/B testing, a percentage of traffic is allocated to a control group. So with a medical experiment, the control audience would be receiving the placebo. With a site exposure, which we're going to walk through this journey in a minute here, the control experience would be just the current site experience. The difference here with a shared control group is that we have various tests all sharing the same control group. So with our medical example there, we might have multiple medical experiments, multiple medicines being tested against the same group of candidates who are all on the placebo. And I'll kind of talk you through how we do the same thing here on a website. So here we've got our client entering the site. This is actually something that would be a business decision, deciding when this decision takes place. Let's, for our current example, say that the shared control group eligibility is established at site entry. So at this point, the candidate is deemed either as a member of the shared control group or not a member of the shared control group, and there should not be bias in this selection. If they're established as a member of the control group, they will be ineligible for test exposure for a designated period of time. If they are not a member of the shared control group, they are eligible for test exposure. So upon being exposed to their first test, say this could be on a product page, they can either, like as always, enter test or control, and so on. So if they enter another test, they can again enter test or control. So you can see there we have the overall shared control group here in the red. It acts as these customers have never been exposed to any of these test experiences. But we still have the individual control check to tell us how each individual test performed. And the reasoning for this is we want to see how our marketing campaign is performing as a whole. So not only how did test number 1 do and how did test number 2 do, but how did all tests active at this time, this overall site experience, perform against those receiving the initial experience.
Now, if you were paying attention and thinking really hard about it, this probably sounds like a concept that a lot of you might be familiar with, the Universal Holdout. And you're asking, how is this different? The fact of the matter is that they can essentially be the same. The difference lies in how they're leveraged by the business. Both processes are withholding a percentage of eligible traffic from all designated exposures, whether that's marketing campaigns, site experiences, etc., for a period of time. So for example, this means a percentage of your audience has been predetermined and will receive no email campaigns, site testing opportunities, or app pushes for that designated period of time. Like we said, the advantage being that the shared control or the universal holdout being leveraged for, something like velocity or quality assurance. And Hannah can talk a little bit more about how that fits into the flow that we just looked at and how this can be leveraged to maximize your testing program.
So here we actually see this come into play. So you can see an additional barrier has been placed before our customer is deemed eligible or ineligible for the shared control group, and this is the universal holdout. So this might even take place prior to site. This could be inclusive of, as Luke said, email and app pushes too. So this is usually can be a longer campaign. This might be in place for up to a year, whereas the shared control group could then be at the platform level, or it could be a monthly refresh. So it is a more agile method of being able to look at your active test experiences versus a control group overall. So this is to talk us through a little bit what this would look at like and speak a little bit more to how Luke explained that we might benefit from this with regard to QA. So you can see that here we've got the global holdout there. We've got our little pink man being withheld from all of these experiments, as well as the shared control. They're additionally being withheld from all experiments. You can see here that with the mobile app test that we're running, this our blue guy is actually not going to be included in our results comparison for this experiment because he is not on the mobile app, whereas our global holdout candidate is. So that's how we could provide an additional level of QA at the platform level. Additionally, this example doesn't have it, but if we ran these tests at different times, these are intended to be concurrent, but oh gosh, sorry. We could have this being refreshed and we could look at a point in time with our all of our candidates here that are on our right that are eligible for exposure for say the month of July. Oh gosh, sorry, I keep pushing that. Whereas and the global holdout kind of serve as a more year-end check QA. Additionally, you can see as far as velocity, our shared control only has 3 people, and they're being used as the control for all of these experiments. So we don't recommend this for clients that have enough traffic to reach confidence easily. But we would say, ideally, you would have 50% traffic in control and 50% traffic in treatment to reach statistical significance fastest. But with the shared control, this does enable us to have more control members that we're able to spread across these experiments. So it actually allows us to reach statistical significance faster if needed.
So one question that we commonly get asked is the situation where you have multiple testing platforms. How do shared control groups work in that type of landscape? So in theory, depending on the complexity of your program, your shared control group may only need to be established across one platform. So, a couple of these platforms, they make it super, super easy. An example of this is Braze. Braze has an out-of-the-box method where you can go ahead and have shared audiences for these different controls. And it's very, very simple, very, very straightforward. On the flip side of that, someone, Optimizely, for example, they do not have an out-of-the-box method. This is when it becomes very, very it becomes important for you to be careful about how those audiences are allocated and how those customers are being tracked. This definitely don't want to say that it cannot be done. It definitely can. It's just very important to understand, how the audiences are being tracked, how the tests are viewing those control groups, and how they're being viewed relative to the shared control group as well. That being said, a big buzzword in the analytics industry right now is a CDP, or a customer data platform. These are types of platforms that can definitely help counteract those types of, roadblocks. That being said, that 360 view that a CDP helps generate by collecting all the data and viewing a customer holistically within that platform can help us track customers most effectively and put them into those control groups across different platforms, tests, sites, things like that. So having the maximum level of access to the data and having it consolidated then offsets the difficulty that we then see from these different testing platforms that make it a more manual process to implement these types of things.
So Luke probably just spoke to the most important consideration, which is audience cleanliness. We want to ensure that the audience is being withheld from all relevant experiments, which, we saw quite a few icons on that last slide. This can actually be difficult to implement depending how advanced your testing program is. We want to ensure that we are, filtering exposures that are have potentially entered a test experience by mistake. And additionally, refreshing, that's important. We need to know how frequently you're planning on refreshing. Also, the difficulties that that Luke just spoke to also become complicated when we plan to refresh these groups. So something else to think about. Eligibility. So do we want these to be set up at the platform level? Do we still want our email? Are there certain email marketing campaigns that we don't impact? Like, for example, maybe a new lead email that might be something that you exclude from this program. When does somebody become eligible? Is it at site entry? Is it, usually with the Universal Holdout deemed, prior to their any activity, what's for known customers? And lastly, do you want to include a Universal Holdout as well? We would recommend this. And the setup comes along with, the setups, everything we've just described too. So great. Well, thanks so much for coming to our session, and we have included our contact information. So if you guys have any questions or comments, we'd love to keep the conversation going.
Happy testing.